Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I am Nicole and I live in India. And today I'm here with my very good and only husband.
Only? One and only.
Right now you are. So today we are going to be watching the video called Reality of Indian Students Going Abroad. Now, I thought this would be an interesting one for us to do together. We do have kids. Our eldest one is in 11th grade and will be going off to school then in about a year and a half or so. And we have talked extensively about where they're going to go to school and what they're going to do. And we know for a fact that we're not sending her to the US, right? At least not for an undergrad. So we both think it's a waste of money and time when you have such great schools here in India. And also, there are fabulous options in Europe that are very well priced. The US is just too expensive and really just not worth the time and the money. But let's see what Amish Tripathi has to say about this, and let's go ahead and take a look. Now, if you haven't already, please give me your like, please give me your subscribe, and let's go.
There are some truths that most Indian parents and even their children seem to believe. I'm obviously being sarcastic about the truths. So one of these truths is that sports and games are not a real career option. As they say, खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे खराब, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे तो बनोगे नवाब. Another truth that many believe is that spending
What did that mean, translator?
I'll use Google Translate. Let's keep going.
Translator, please help me. What did it say?
If you jump around and play sports, you're going to lose in life. If you study well, you're going to become a king.
Oh, thank you, translator.
3-4 years trying to sit for entrance exams for a government job is worthwhile, even though the success rate for the UPSC exam is 0.2%. All of you would have seen 12 Fail. I loved Vikrant Masi as an actor. Big fan of his. But 99.8% of the people who sit for exams, they're not 12 Fail, they are UPSC fails as well. And what if you spend 3-4 years on that? Coming back, another truth that many parents and students believe is that foreign education or simply moving abroad will make your life. This episode is focused on this foreign obsession. Does this investment truly transform lives or merely fulfill a facade? Is foreign always better, or is foreign never better? Or is the answer complicated? Let's find out. The allure of Western education, particularly in Canada, the UK and the USA, is marketed in broad strokes of esteemed degrees and promising horizons. Very good marketing campaign. Every year, lakhs of Indian students pack their bags and leave for foreign lands in the hope of a better future. The number of Indian students abroad is a staggering 13.35 lakhs in 2024, according to recently released data by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs. And where are our Indian students going? Canada comes out on top with 4,27,000 Indian students, followed by the USA with 3,37,000 students, and the UK with 1,85,000 students, and then Australia with 1,22,000, and Germany with nearly 43,000. But these dreams and aspirations of studying abroad have a heavy price tag on them. According to a report by Grading in 2022, Indian students spent a whopping $47 billion on their academic journeys abroad. Yes, $47 billion. You heard that right. That's not just tuition fees. We are talking about everything from accommodation to living costs. That is approximately $35,000 per year per student. That is almost 30 lakhs per year per student. Year on year, every year. 30 lakhs per year per student. Most students or their parents either end up taking loans or selling lands or breaking investments for this expense. Simple maths. If you're not earning back this money plus interest, is this investment even worth it? How many freshers do you know who start anywhere close to this salary in India, particularly after tax? Therefore, is the only option to earn back this money getting a job abroad? But
Yes.
are those jobs available abroad? And are visas available? We'll come back to this. Now, behind these numbers lies a challenging reality, a very challenging reality. When our students, when they're studying abroad, right, getting part-time jobs is actually very difficult. Living expenses are shockingly high. All right, so therefore either their parents have to keep sending them money from India, or they
Yes.
have to somehow do 2 or even 3 jobs, earn enough to pay for it. There is also the reality of racism. It is a lot less, to be fair, from all that I've read. It's a lot less than it used to be a few decades ago. But it's still there, right? And Indians look Indian. There is racism. The fourth thing, the most critical thing, is the West is not as safe as we think it is. At least some areas of the West. We've seen that movie Donkey, right? How people live and the lack of safety. I can tell you my own example, right? I'm 50 years old. I lived around 45 years in India. Of these 50 years, I never saw a mugging with my own eyes. I never saw someone drawing a knife with my own eyes. I never saw it. Right, 45 years. I lived just 4.5 years in the UK, in Mayfair, among the most upmarket areas in London, perhaps among the most upmarket areas in the world. And in those 4.5 years, I saw muggings twice, and once with a guy drawing a knife. And out there, when a guy comes to mug you, he's not like us Indians, relatively small. He's a 6.5 foot big thug bugger. You just want to run in the other direction. The West is not as safe as we think it is. And even after all these challenges, our students who graduate abroad don't get a good job. And even worse, they're stuck with huge loans that they have to repay. For 4 years, in fact, a little over 4 years, from 2019 to 2023, I had the privilege of serving as a diplomat, as an Indian government diplomat in the UK, as the Minister Culture and Education at the Indian High Commission in London. I was directly responsible for the welfare of thousands of Indian students in the UK. And this gave me a first-hand understanding of what our students, our Indian students there, go through. Most of them are not struggling due to a lack of qualifications or commitments. They are Indians. On average, they are very smart and very hardworking. However, they are caught in a vicious cycle of high living costs and lack of job opportunities. This is a story echoing through the hearts of many Indian students who expect stable careers but face unforeseen and very difficult realities. Now, to be honest, this scenario faced by Indian students reflects broader issues, broader problems within Western universities themselves. Many local Western students, you will be shocked to know, many local Western students are themselves not earning out their investment in education through their jobs or their salaries. In fact, there is a huge political movement for Western students, for American students, to get their student loans waived from their government in the US. Can you believe that? The American government is providing $40 billion in student loan waivers each year. Again, you heard that right, $40 billion. The American government is waiving student loans worth that much every year.
It's still not enough. And I did a little bit of research into this in one of the classes I was taking, actually. And essentially, when you file for bankruptcy, student loans is one of the only things that will not be discharged. So even if you filed for bankruptcy, you cannot get rid of your student loan debt. So although the government is planning on, assisting people with their loans with this $40 billion, I mean, in the type of country that we are, the fact that we don't offer higher education at a much more minimal cost and more affordable cost is really shocking and quite sad, I would say, for the people that really want to go into higher education or higher studies. And I think too, there is this push that everyone should get a degree, and that's really not always the case. There are people that maybe are not cut out to be in college, and that doesn't mean that they can't, be successful somewhere else. We still need, at least, in the US, electricians are very highly paid, plumbers are extremely well paid, mechanics, and these types of positions that require, training and certification, and also a deep knowledge, but may not include, higher level studies. And there should be more, I think, push for those students to go into those fields instead of taking up, a degree that they might not ever be able to pay back.
The obvious question is this: if the local Americans themselves are not earning out their education investment, how will our Indian students earn it out? Simply put, either the cost of education is too high, or jobs are simply not paying enough to recover their education cost. Now let's talk about some of the world's richest universities like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. Harvard alone has more than $50 billion as its corpus. That one university has a corpus of $50 billion. That is an amount bigger than the GDP of over 120 countries. With so much money, you'd think that they would be perfectly positioned to reduce the cost of their courses so that students can actually recover their investment. But they are not doing so. Could it be that this enormous amount of money is actually being used to pay very high salaries to university administrators? I don't know. Or could it also be that this allows the influence of wealthy alumni who shape university policies and even their curriculum for their own benefit? Furthermore, many Indian students, are forced or encouraged to attend protests and rallies. Now, I'm not questioning the importance of these issues. Like, for example, I read of this issue that in the US, in universities, there were protests against fracking for oil. Fracking is something that they believe out there, some say, is not good for the local environment in the US. Now, this is an American issue to be solved between Americans. What do Indian students have to do with this? Why should they be forced or encouraged to join protests against?
Well, I've never heard of anyone being forced to join a protest, so I'm not sure where he's getting this information. Why they were asked to, I mean, he has a perfectly reasonable question there, like why are Indians getting involved in that? But then again, these could be Indians that were born in the US and look at it as their issue as well, not just an American versus Indian issue. Like if these kids were born there and they see it as hurting the environment, maybe that's just something that they care about. But I don't believe anyone's forced to attend a rally or a protest. I certainly never saw that in my time there, and I don't see what would be the point in having people that were forced.
Fracking for oil in the US. Shouldn't the Indian students be instead focusing on their studies and getting a good job instead? And the key point is this: are Indian middle class parents taking loans of on average 30 lakhs per year?
Probably.
Only so that their children can be cannon fodder in a Western protest which has no real impact on their own long-term lives. Is this fair? Prominent American.
Well, again, I mean, if their kids are actually choosing to go do that, that's up to them. They're actually at that point adults, and they can choose to go to a protest if they want, regardless.
Yeah, but the parents are paying. His point is the
Parents are paying for it. I understand that.
Use the time to advance your career.
I totally get that.
Education.
But their kids are adults, and they need to be able to make their own decisions. And calling them, I think, cannon fodder is a little over the top.
Historian Victor Davis Hanson has written several articles on how we've seen that many Western universities are not living up to their reputation. Instead of encouraging open-mindedness and teaching critical thinking, they seem stuck in controversies and intolerance. This approach doesn't help students grow and develop essential skills like analytical thinking, articulate writing, and confident speaking. Graduates leave feeling unprepared for the real world and its challenges. As these universities rake in billions of dollars annually, the burden of international fees is a very heavy cross for the students to bear. Is the degree a transformational tool as it promises to be, Or is it a mere status symbol, and a very costly status symbol? While STEM, now for those who don't know, STEM means science, tech, engineering, and mathematics. While STEM graduates show better job prospects, data indicates that only around 60% of international students manage to secure relevant jobs in the US after graduation. But the number becomes even worse for those graduating from humanities programs like, say, sociology or cinema appreciation or gender studies, indicating a very tough road ahead for those trying to graduate in humanities programs. In Canada and Europe, the trends follow similar lines, with STEM fields showing better placement statistics than non-STEM counterparts. But it is also very important to note that only a very small fraction of our total students studying abroad are in what are called Ivy League or Russell Group colleges. Now, Ivy League is a term in the US for those colleges which are top of the line, and Russell Group is a similar term in the UK for those colleges which are top of the line. Yes, there are better opportunities if you graduate from one of these top colleges, the Ivy League or the Russell Group, but most Indian students are often lured into joining small universities for insignificant, tiny courses or degrees, but it's very, very hard to get jobs that will pay back their investment in these foreign college degrees. Indian families often make huge sacrifices, selling assets or taking loans, believing in the dreams these foreign degrees promise. But I'm repeating, if even American-born graduates are finding it tough and collectively receive around $40 billion in student loan waivers every year, it raises a very critical question. How can Indian students expect to recover their own education costs abroad? As a diplomat in the UK, as an Indian diplomat in the UK, I had the opportunity to visit many regions, including the Midlands in the UK, where I came face to face with the tough realities confronted by Indian students studying in small universities, striving for a better future. I met this young man whose story left a profound impact on me. It really troubled me, actually. He shared that he was living in cramped conditions, a tiny place, sharing a small house with 8 others. 8 others. A scenario that was far from the dream that he thought and his family had thought he would be living in the UK. Despite the freezing nights, he was working 2 part-time jobs in the UK, pushing through sickness and exhaustion while still studying at his university. This seemed like the only way to pay back his student loans, or at least his living expenses out there. His father back in Punjab had mortgaged their family's land, their primary source of livelihood. To support this boy's education abroad, this young man hadn't been home for over 3 years. He hadn't seen his parents because every pound was precious. He couldn't afford to spend the money for the international plane ticket. Even healthcare, something as basic as seeing a doctor when he was ill, was a luxury in the UK due to the long waiting times in the UK NHS. For those who don't know, NHS stands for National Health Service in the UK. It's the doctors, tests, everything where you go if you fall ill or if you have an accident or whatever. This student said that he'd had a ligament tear once and his appointment with the NHS was given 6 weeks later. He suffered through his immense pain, still doing 2 part-time jobs in the cold UK winter for 6 weeks. Like, there's an NHS story of mine also as well, right? I lived there for, like I said, for nearly 4.5 years. I just returned from India. I got a fever. There was a suspicion, what if I'd been bitten by a mosquito in India and I'd got malaria? The local doctor, the High Commission doctor told me, go get a blood test. I asked for an appointment at the NHS. My appointment for a blood test was given 3 weeks later. Whoa. I had no choice. 3 weeks later, I had no choice. I had to go to a private clinic to get a blood test done. I spent £450 for a blood test. That's 45,000 rupees for a blood test. Yeah. This is the reality that many students who go abroad don't know how difficult healthcare is in the West.
£5.
I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps there could have been another path for this student. With just half of that money, he might have moved to cities like, say, Pune or Bengaluru or Hyderabad, where job prospects are booming and life could be more dignified and healthier. He could have visited his parents more frequently. Who among us doesn't want to see their parents as often as possible, right? Unfortunately, his story is a stark reflection of thousands of Indian students who dream of a better life abroad but encounter tough and harsh realities. It's a poignant reminder that while the grass may seem greener abroad, sometimes the opportunities at home could offer a richer and more fulfilling life. This is something worth questioning and really worth questioning. Is the Western education system the best path forward?
No.
I know that the alternatives are also quite tough, frankly. The top government universities and colleges in India, like the IITs, the IIMs, are also very difficult to get into. The intense competition causes stress on our students and sadly, sometimes leads to suicides as well.
Yep.
On the other hand, the private universities in India also charge very high fees, though not as much as the fees abroad, to be fair. They also charge very high fees, and some of these private universities do not have a reputation for good education. Students must therefore thoroughly compare the costs and the job prospects from both education abroad and universities in India before making their decision. The Indian government must expand university infrastructure here. I'm delighted that many more IIMs and IITs and AIMS, etc., have been opened in the recent past. We need many more, a hell of a lot more. Equally, we must get foreign universities to open campuses in India with fees denominated at lower Indian values in Indian rupees. The lower cost may make the degree from the foreign university in India much more feasible in terms of recovery of investment for our students. The Indian government in the NEP is the new education policy, I'm sure you guys are aware of this. The Indian government in the NEP has made provisions for foreign universities to come to India and set up campuses here. We must
I did hear one story or one case though that this was the case where they had set up like a remote campus or something between here and the UK, and whoever did that, their degrees were not recognized in India.
It's okay. It's
So-
a start. It will change.
Yeah,
But this is-
it's hopeful that
what
it'll
he's talking
change.
about is the prime minister and the cabinet ministers passed a bill adjusting rules
Okay.
for campuses to be set up here.
Yeah, I think that's a
It
great
wasn't the
it's a
case
great
in the
opportunity.
past.
Yeah.
So if you did something online, it may or may not be accepted. But they can now have a physical structure here in presence.
strongly encourage those foreign universities to come here, come to India, educate our students
So that's
right here,
yeah.
not abroad. To conclude, look, Western education does offer potential benefits that cannot be denied and it should not be denied. But it is neither a guaranteed nor perfect solution for everyone. To all the students among you, please carefully analyze the course you're planning to take up in terms of job prospects that will result from it. It's not just about the university, but that specific course should be worth it. And remember, your study abroad counselor has different incentives. For that study abroad counselor is just a business. For you, it is your life. So cross-check with friends or relatives abroad as well. And even check Google Baba. Sometimes you get great information from there. No harm in checking that out.
ChatGPT.
And I should clarify, I'm not saying that all foreign education is counterproductive. Of course not. If you get a full scholarship, or if you're studying a highly specialized course which is not available in India, or a course which often does convert into a good job abroad, then it makes sense. Go for it. But think all this through, analyze it before you make that step, before you fly abroad. Lastly, a small suggestion. For both our students and the government, is there something in our ancient Gurukul system that can probably be used as a solution for the problems that confront us today, which can be useful in this situation? They focused on making a student capable of constant learning, not just passing exams. Very often, what you learn in schools and universities is obsolete by the time you enter the job market. So you have to have the self-capability of learning and adapting by yourself. Another point, there used to be a system of guilds apprenticeship in ancient India, which led to marketable skills for jobs.
Well, that's what I was talking.
Similarly, should
That's
vocational
intriguing.
education be encouraged in India rather than just a degree in science or commerce or humanities? Should corporates take this up? It's an idea worth thinking about. The skills training program that the Indian government has come up with is a move in that direction, to be fair. And if you are interested in finding out more about how corporates can help in this, do check out the Zoho model of Sridhar Vembu in Tamil Nadu. It's a brilliant model. Leave comments below on what you think we can do as a society to help students in India. So this was
That was really interesting. I mean, it's pretty much everything that we've kind of already talked about and agreed on, right? So, for our own children, I really don't believe that they'll be going to the U.S. for their undergrad, maybe for a master's or an MBA. But for their undergrad, we would like them to either stay here or there are places in Europe that we've been looking at. But again, in the places in Europe, the fees and things are very similar as to what we would find here. We are not looking at colleges that are exponentially more expensive than the schools and the fees that we're already looking at here in India. And I think, I get a lot of pressures at work, because this for me also just not just in terms of going to school abroad, but just trying to leave India and going abroad in general, like for work. And I really think that the young people should do as much as possible to stay here in India. There's so much opportunity and so much promise, not only for a good education, but then also then for a good job after. The promise of India is so much more than it was, when it opened up in the 90s. And there are just lots of different types of roles and opportunities and, just availability and things that you can't find in the US.
Yeah, true. I agree.
Yeah. You're not going to fight me on that? We going to fight?
There's no point. There's no winner in this.
No.
Well, the colleges.
Yeah.
make a lot.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I've seen it too. I always, at least once a year, I get a message or a forward from somebody talking about a young Indian student that's in the US that has run out of money, that they're looking for finances, and please support him. But my question really, when I receive those, is why was he there in the first place? If he could not ever afford it, and, who gave him that bad advice to go to the US when he probably would have had a much better opportunity here in India? And so if you are looking at going to the US, really weigh your options. Are you getting a full scholarship or any type of a scholarship? Can you really afford what it is you're trying, to do and want your family maybe to support you with? And will you be able to get a job to pay it back? That is really the question. Yeah. So if you like the content, please give a like, please give a subscribe, and as always, I love you and bye-bye.